The words for this morning's chalice lighting are by David Rico. We go on loving. What makes us human beings so uniquely wonderful in this puzzling universe is that we never give up on love. Against all odds, with no guarantee of being loved in return, out of the hate and hurt so often handed us, in the face of the sad suffering history has let us see, we go on loving. What deep respect we deserve for this capacity of ours to make love out of anything and to let it last.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed.
Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been here 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see.
Good morning. I'd like to talk to you about Jesus, about me and Jesus, about how I love Jesus and why I love Jesus. For some people, particularly those wounded by Christianity, it may be difficult, perhaps even threatening, to hear Christian talk. In telling my story, I'm going to talk about God. If the word God troubles you, don't use it. It's just a name, a symbol for the sacred essence present in the whole cosmos, a sacred essence that is ultimately unnameable, beyond containment in any word or symbol or image or concept. In talking about Christianity, I'm not going to talk about what's wrong with Christianity, nor am I going to defend Christianity. I'm not going to talk about church. Christianity is about community to me, not institutions, not bricks and mortar. I'm simply sharing what I find truly beautiful about the faith tradition I embrace. I'm a mystic Christian. Mysticism, very simply put, is the spirituality of the direct experience of the divine transcendent, the ultimate reality, the all, that which I call God. My direct experience of God comes within the context of my Christian faith. My understanding and experience of Christianity is highly suspect to many, if not most, people who profess Christianity. To some humanists and atheists and members of the spiritual but not religious tribe, when finding out that I embrace Christianity as my foundational faith practice, they just don't get it. They often instantly brand me as unintelligent and unenlightened. Probably doesn't come as a surprise to you that I get this reaction from many Unitarian Universalists. I was born into the Christian tradition and have continued to actively practice it within one faith community or another for most of my life. My spiritual path began consciously unfolding and evolving when I was 12 years old. For many years, I was a closeted mystic, and in more recent years, I've come very close to being a closeted Christian. I found myself jumping through all kinds of hoops to qualify my Christianity. I'm a Christian, but I'm not that kind of Christian. I no longer hide who I am. I'm a student, a disciple, a devoted follower of the way of Jesus. I was very close to my maternal grandmother, and it's her faith that first informed mine. A devout Christian, she belonged to the Willow Oak African Methodist Episcopal Church all her life. Her faith in God was strong, and her relationship with Jesus was astounding to me. She'd be going about her business during the day, around the house, and every now and again she'd stop whatever she was doing, clap her hands above her head, and exclaim with a big smile, "Thank you, Jesus." To her, Jesus was in the room all the time. He was her Lord and Savior, but he was also her best friend and confidant. Jesus loved her, and she loved Jesus. She thanked him during the good times, and she was sure of his presence in the bad times. Jesus got her through the trials of her life, and as she lay dying from cancer, it was Jesus she called upon, and I believe it gave her peace and comfort. My grandmother knew with certainty that Jesus loved her. I envied my grandmother's relationship with Jesus. I felt guilty because I knew I didn't have that depth of faith. Even though I didn't share my grandmother's theology, I didn't completely discard it. This was my foundation. It has informed everything I am. I evolved past, but I integrated it. I didn't throw it out. Disturbing questions and nagging thoughts about my relationship with Jesus and my images of God lay just beneath the surface for years until I finally had to grapple with them. The anthropomorphic, white, male, gray-bearded God who lived above us in heaven, separate and apart from the world, and who intervened at will into human affairs, became less and less acceptable. And the more I dove into New Testament scriptures in my graduate theological studies, the clearer it became that the powerful, punitive, and capricious God of Hebrew Bible was not the divine presence that Jesus was talking about. Several years ago, I had a spontaneous experience that can most easily be called a mystic experience. I found myself beyond the veil of my ordinary consciousness. I stood bathed in what I can only call the mind of God. It was as if all existence revealed itself to me. I had no fear, no doubt, only a profound sense of connectedness to all of life. I was bathed in love in its purest sense. Suddenly it all became clear. This experience was Jesus' experience of God. Jesus showing us that God is both vastly greater than anything we can imagine, and also integrated within every fiber of our being. Jesus telling us that all creation lives, moves, and has its being in the all, in the divine, in God. But we lack the quality of heart and mind to perceive it. Jesus taught in the tradition of wisdom teachers like the Buddha and the Prophet Muhammad, but Jesus was unique among wisdom teachers. Philosopher Ken Wilber, creator of integral theory and a devout Buddhist, was asked why he, as a Buddhist, so admired and respected Christianity. Wilber's reply was, "Because Christianity is the only faith tradition whose master's prime directive was love." Many wisdom masters taught compassion, but love and compassion, Wilber says, are not synonymous. Love is greater than compassion. The Christian scriptures, both canonical and Gnostic, are filled with passages of Jesus talking about love. The teaching is, love God, love one another, and love yourself. He taught that God is love, and when we live in love, we live in God, and God lives in us. It's within love that we find compassion, inclusion, forgiveness, and the pursuit of justice for all people. My love of the Christian tradition has nothing to do with the institutional church or any particular denomination. My devotion to the tradition is because of my love for Jesus and my experience of the divine transcendent through the path he revealed. Enlightened beings throughout human history have revealed a path, opened a portal to the divine. There are many paths to enlightenment, but the destination is the same. Sometimes we choose the path, sometimes the path chooses us. I want to walk the talk of the Master of Love. The way of love is universal, and the gift of Christianity is love, pure, selfless love.
One, each person is worthwhile. Two, be kind in all you do. Three, let's help each other grow. Four, keep searching for the true. Five, each person has a say. Six, work for a peaceful world. Seven, the web of life's the way that will bring us back to you.
We are Unitarian Universalists, people of the open minds, loving hearts, and the helping hands.
I have a poem for you that came to me through Larry Robinson's Poetry Lovers List at sonic.net. If you don't know Larry as the former mayor of Sebastopol and one of the leaders of Rumi's Caravan, you should get to know him. I'll link you below to his poetry site. A word of warning, this poem has one of the words you can't say on television in it. It starts with S and rhymes with zit. This is Jesus Incognito by Alison Luterman. Don't tell anyone, but I love Jesus. I love his big, dark Jewish eyes, so full of suffering soul like an unemployed poet's, and his thick, sensuous Jewish lips, and his kinky, curly hair, just like mine, uncontrollable, despite conditioners, and the way he always argues with everyone and will go to hell for love. He's just like that Buddhist god Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, except his name is easier to pronounce. When you're in trouble, it's hard to remember to yell for Avalokiteshvara. But oh, Jesus arises naturally every time a crazy driver hot dogs past me on the freeway. I know I should say the Shema when I'm about to die, but will I be able to remember Hebrew at a time like that? I don't want to die saying, oh shit. I'd like to leave my body consciously, like a Tibetan Lama sitting in full lotus with my head turned toward where I'll reincarnate next. But let's be realistic. I probably couldn't meditate enough to become enlightened in the however many years I have left. Jesus seems easier. All you have to do is love everyone. Well, seems is the key word here. Sometimes the more you try to love people, the more you hate them. Maybe it would be better to try not to love people and then watch the love force its way out of you like grass through cement. Anything is better than organized religion. I don't like the singing in churches, all those hymns in major keys. I don't think religion should sound so triumphant. It should be humble and aware of the basic incurable pathos of the human condition, and in a minor key, and sung in a mysterious ancient language like Sanskrit or Hebrew. Is it okay for me to love Jesus but not be Christian? I could try to open my heart and give away all my possessions. It's not that different from being a Buddhist, after all, except for a history of witch burnings, the Inquisition, the subjugation, rape, and pillage of indigenous people all over the world, not to mention 20 centuries of vicious anti-Semitism. That's a lot to overlook, to get back to a baby born among animals to a Jewish mother, Miriam. And what about that other Mary, the sexy one? Jesus, I don't believe you died a virgin. I think you needed to taste everything human, to inhabit the whole mess: blood, shit, flies, regret, envy. Why me? I owe you and all the other bodhisattvas and sages and newborn babies a debt of thanks for agreeing to come back and marry yourselves to our painful predicament again and again. And I do thank you, bowing to the infinite directions.
Hi, I'm Paula, one of your lay chaplains. Milestones are where we share our joys and sorrows with the congregation. You're invited to light a candle to remember those you are holding near to your hearts. Pat Bailey and Stacey Okura write, "This is Jen Freese's last week as DRE, and we want her to know that we're thankful for her love and dedication to the kids of our congregation. Jen and the RE staff were the first non-family people that our son Evan was alone with. It made services almost like date night. Thank you, and good luck, Jen." Joyous news from Aaron Lund. It's with great joy that I announce the birth of my second son, Bjorn Henrik Lund, born on 7/31/20. After over 2 years of infertility treatments to even get pregnant with him, and then a pregnancy during the COVID pandemic, it's such a relief that he's finally here and healthy. He was 9 pounds, 13 ounces, and 22.5 inches at birth. Believe it or not, smaller than his brother was. He's very snuggly and a good sleeper and eater so far. I'm doing well recovering, as expected, from repeat cesarean, and grateful for the help of my husband Rick and my parents visiting from Oregon. My older son Marcus, 4.5 years, is over the moon and so excited to be a big brother. We look forward to introducing Bjorn in person when COVID allows. David Templeton and Susan Pantea just celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. They write, "The last 25 years have been a grand adventure. We're looking forward to the years and adventures to come." Peggy Spofford shares that she turned 83 on Friday, August 7th. My daughter took me out in her new inflatable kayak to celebrate on Saturday, followed by a wonderful dinner at Karen and Renee's home. Andy Levine has 2 big milestones to share. First, on Friday, August 7th, I will retire after 30 years working at Meade Clark Lumber. On Sunday, August 9th, I will turn 65. Looking forward to my next adventures. Sally Jones also has 2 to share. August 4th was the 10-year anniversary of my mom's passing. I can't believe it's been that long. There's still so much I want to share with her. On a happier note, August 14th will be the 10-year anniversary of Randy's and my marriage. We found each other later in life, but better late than never. Stephanie Reed writes, "August 7th would have been my beloved brother Burr's 65th birthday. He drowned in a rafting accident when he was 18, and I remember him especially on the day of his death, Easter Sunday, and on his birthday." Reminder from Rev Chris that we will conduct an online memorial service for our friend and fellow member, Bob Barrows, on Saturday, August 15th at 1 p.m. If you have something to share with all, or a private concern to talk over with the lay chaplain, please contact us at laychaplains@uusantarosa.org. We give thanks for the sharing of these milestones, for how they remind us of our shared humanity and common fate, and inspire our compassion and care. May all our joys be magnified as we delight together in the good news. May all our sorrows be eased as we carry them together in community. May you who are seeking for courage, comfort, faith, and hope find what you seek. And may all people grow in wisdom, compassion, and love, that the whole world might live with justice and in peace. Be safe and be well.
The prayer today was written by Cameron Bellum, a young female Catholic writer from Seattle. It's called Prayer for a Pandemic. She asks, Holy Spirit, lover of life, may we, who are merely inconvenienced, remember those whose lives are at stake. May we, who have no risk factors, remember those most vulnerable. May we, who have the luxury of working from home, remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we, who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close, remember those who have no other options. May we, who have to cancel our trips, remember those that have no safe place to go. May we, who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the market, remember those who have no margin at all. May we, who settle in for another quarantine at home, remember those who have no home. As fear grips our country, let us choose love. During this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. May all find courage and strength and peace. Amen.
cántale tu compasión, sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Come to me, come to me.
In our monthly Worship Associates meeting just the other day, we were having a rich discussion about how we might be truly welcoming in our services and to really increase the messages of diversity and equity and conclusion that we want to be heard from our pulpit or from our YouTube channel, as the case may be. And one of the members of the group had a remarkable suggestion that it turned out resonated with many. It was that we needed to change our relationship with Christianity. And one of our so-called atheists said this. I say so-called good-naturedly, for I know this person's faith in love and nature is great. That such a friend would say such a thing. An atheist saying we need to change, improve our relationship with Christianity gave me great hope. Hope of resolving a great tension, an unsatisfying, problematic tension that has been a part of this tradition, certainly the entire time I have been a Unitarian Universalist, and it turns out for centuries before. Namely, that on the one hand, our twin traditions of Unitarianism and Universalism do indeed plainly, inarguably come from the Christian tradition. And yet, contemporary Unitarian Universalism not only fails to take advantage of everything good in its great history, but actively eschews it, poo-poos it. Very many people who consider themselves Christian or followers of Jesus, not always the same thing, or who come from Christian backgrounds but are for one reason or another drawn to a UU congregation, find themselves here unable to truly express their faith, no matter how perfectly their principles accord with the UU principles, or their politics or justice priorities align with our own. And that tension between the fact of our history and our problematic, even negative relationship to Christianity has been widely recognized, certainly among our leaders and commentators. Listen to this from one of our great old scholars and the man who brought Unitarianism to India, Jabez Sunderland. Jabez Sunderland. He, affirming a simple truth, said Unitarianism in the past had always been Christian. Nobody can doubt that. Our great historic leaders, those who have given luster to the Unitarian name, Channing, the Wares, Theodore Parker, Dewey, Bellows, to say nothing of many of those now living, have all stood for liberal Christianity. Unitarianism in England, Europe, and all foreign lands where it is known does the same today. It had always been, without dispute and without a question, until soon after the end of the Civil War. Yet since that time, he wrote, there has been a movement that has steadily sought to differentiate itself from the earlier Unitarianism by being something broader and more advanced than that has long been averse to the use of the Christian name and has been more and more distinctly moving off from even a theistic basis until now it declares openly and strongly that even belief in God must no longer be declared an essential of Unitarianism. That's Jabez Sunderland. He was writing in 1886. But he might as well be speaking of today, writing in the midst of sometimes called the Western controversy, when the West started, like in Cleveland, of course, but the ministers of the frontier, led by a famous fellow named William Channing Gannett, who wrote a lovely text called Things Commonly Believed Among Us. These were members of the Free Religious Association, the Ethical Culture Society, who were trying to transform Unitarianism away from its Christian roots. And folks like Jabez Sunderland entered the fray. You can read their back and forth. It's a dramatic tale. Many of these writings are still available. I've got links for you down below. And needless to say, if you're aware of how we're doing things these days, Jabez and his side lost the argument. And Unitarianism and then Universalism and Unitarian Universalism moved away and in very many cases sat away and ignored its Christian roots. And this tension, who are we? What is our faith? Are we a faith? Are we a religion? Those unanswered questions plague the movement as a whole to this day. They plague our congregation a little less, I like to think, because I'm clear on the answer. We are a religion. We must be. Because, as Sunderland said, again in 1886, when we call our movement religious and then proceed to declare that no religious belief whatever, no matter how rational, natural, true, or fundamental to worship, is necessary to it, while every religious belief or non-belief under heaven may justly claim protection under its banner and propagate itself in its name, when that happens, we have got something about as indefinite, nebulous, everything and nothing, not to say self-contradictory, as the conditions of human thought allow. That is certainly what some folks say of us from the outside. That is our current condition, I would say, a great tension that has never been resolved. We have a set of principles we proclaim together as a kind of statement of faith or creed, but they're broad ethical principles that aren't really distinctly religious at all. And there are our sources, but they're very broad as well. And the fact of the matter, in my experience, is that very few people really attend to them or root themselves very deeply in even one, let alone all six. And the reason is sound. It's understandable. Our tradition has a deep trauma in our relationship to Christianity. People who were trying to expand the boundaries of that term to be open to teachings of evolution and geology and to other innovations of science, to shaking the roots of white supremacy, to extending the powers of faith to all people, were continually rejected by more traditional and orthodox churches. And there's a lot of pain. Now, I'm not proposing here that we become Christians again. Not any or all of us need to do that. But we do need to heal our relationship with this tradition. Many individuals have been harmed by it, and the tradition as a whole, I think, feels harmed by it. And we need to face that and rethink what our relationship with the tradition is. Heal it. Take what's good and take what's ours from it and reclaim, at the very least, our own Christian heritage. A lot of baby got thrown out with the bathwater when we stopped rooting ourselves in that tradition. Much was lost. All the remarkable voices of the distinctly Unitarian and Universalist Christian prophets, Channing, Ballou, Parker, Sophia Lyon-Fahs, Olympia Brown, people I loved to read, drank like nectar into my mind in divinity school. I'm deep into Taoism and Buddhism, as you know, but I would gratefully preach from and teach about and be rooted in completely, demand that you pay attention to our Unitarian Christian ancestors. We didn't just lose them when we threw the baby out with the bathwater. The world lost them too. There's a beautiful form of Christianity that is rarely practiced, and our folks preached it. If we could open our ears to our own voices from our history, then we could open our ears to our Christian allies of all times and places and eras, our allies in building the kind of world we actually dream of, loving, just, and peaceful, like Brother St. Francis and Sister St. Clare and Mother Teresa and Father Oscar Romero and Sister Helen Prejean, or Reverends Nadia Boltz-Weber, William Barber III, John Lewis, countless others, as we saw in that slideshow. What we also have lost in our unfriendliness to Christianity, even our own, as the worship associates noted in a conversation about true diversity, is our ability to communicate with huge portions of the population, white, black, and brown, who believe in God or love Jesus, and who might be seeking a more free-thinking, less dogmatic, more politically active fellowship than very many Christian churches offer today. But they can't be made to feel like fools for loving Jesus. We need to offer people what people go to church for. Sunderland said, "The very thing about our churches that is most likely to attract people, and certainly the thing most likely to hold them when they once come, is the finding that with our reason and with our freedom, we have at the same time a religious faith firmer and higher than they have yet reached, or quite see how to reach, but one so beautiful and helpful that they would like to reach it if they could. We may be sure that people do not long to go hear preachers who believe less than they do, or long to attend churches that stand for less than they themselves believe." So again, it's not that we can or need to become Christian again. That ship has sailed. This is a theologically diverse community, and that's awesome. It's incredible and unique. But we do need to be religious. We need to concern ourselves with that which with the Christian faith is concerned. Ultimate matters. And we need to worship, to pray. It's the one thing we do that you can't get anywhere else, to meditate, to inquire into matters of destiny and morality and the deep and true nature of things. That's the function of religion. We need to talk about God. We need to talk about holy books and holy things and holy teachers. And if we want to drink from the deep, deep well of our own tradition, we also have to talk about Jesus. Some of you may not want all of that. Many of you may not want all of that. That is the great tension. Frequently in gatherings of UUs, leaders here at the congregation and elsewhere, I like to ask, what is sacred to you? Name what is sacred to you. And by far, the common answer, whether a board meeting or a new member orientation, is community. That comes first. And that's okay. Community is very important. But in my opinion, it can't come first. Ultimate things have to come first. God, love, the teachings of Jesus or the Buddha or any holy book. Those things have to come first because that's what binds the community together. And the history of our greatly tense tradition shows that an organized association built primarily just on ethical principles does not thrive. We have the same 150,000 nationwide adherents that we had well over a century ago, sustaining ourselves primarily as what someone once called the church of last resort, the place for wounded folks and seekers to come because they intuit the righteousness and the value of singing together and working together and feeding people together, but can't handle all that other hoo-ha that passes under the umbrella of Christianity. More than ever, I think we have to turn to the deep wells of our tradition, the spiritual wells. Our brothers and sisters in the Philippines acknowledged this. When the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Philippines was founded, they opted for 8 principles. What we think of as our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all people, is their second, and so on down the line to their 8th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence. The first principle in the Church of the Philippines, the UU Church of the Philippines, is this simple. There is God. God is love. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, community-loving people, putting that one first. But I think if we can teach ourselves and reclaim our old voices and find ways to think of that word differently, maybe just that would be enough. Reclaiming that word God for the huge numbers of people for whom it still has deep value and meaning, including me. I think we need to reclaim that word no matter the harm it has caused and find a way to show our own understanding of it. A universal force of love that is in and for all things. That's old Unitarian teaching. If we do this work to open ourselves again to our Christian tradition, we will have a bridge that lets us reach out to the vast majority of our neighbors. And it will also let us have an amazing human being back in our mix. Jesus, our guy. Giving up on Jesus as a teacher and exemplar in our tradition is like giving up on the Buddha or Lao Tzu, but worse, because he's been a part of this stream from the beginning. If we will heal and listen and rethink and reclaim, we get back Jesus the teacher, Jesus the prophet, Jesus the healer, Jesus the bodhisattva, Jesus the Jewish rabbi. The Jesus who may or may not have anything to do at all with what gets called Christianity today. The Jesus that John Fugelsang described as this: a radical, nonviolent revolutionary who hung around with lepers, hookers, and crooks, wasn't American and never spoke English, was anti-wealth, anti-death penalty, and anti-public prayer. But he was never anti-gay, never mentioned abortion or birth control, never called the poor lazy, never justified torture, never fought for tax cuts for the wealthiest Nazarenes, never asked a leper for a copay, and was a long-haired, brown-skinned, homeless, community organizing, anti-slut-shaming Middle Eastern Jew. I don't know about you, but I'd hang out in the garden with that guy. So let's embrace our past and open to the future, celebrating and cultivating our Christian heritage, now in partnership with the other sources that also nourish our strange and difficult spiritual tradition. When we get back together again, I'd like to start a UU Christian fellowship here to complement our pagan group and the Buddhist group, City Zen that I'm also a part of, and our newly formed Jewish group. I want every source to have its people who can flower. And I would like to preach more out of our UU ancestors and from the challenging stories and teachings of Jesus. I think we can do that. I think we can live in and transform that tension that exists if we just remember God is love, love is God. Christianity wounded you, friends. There's ways to fix that. The congregation and I will walk with you and talk with you as you find your way back to the great teacher. And if you weren't wounded, but you are curious, and you want to start reading and growing as a follower of our own Christian ancestors, then the congregation and I will walk with you and talk with you while you make a new friend in Jesus. Bless us one and all. Stay safe out there, friends. I can't wait to see you again. Take care.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. She speaks, and the sound of her voice is so sweet. The birds hush their singing, and the melody she gave to me within my heart is ringing, and she walks with me, and she talks with me, and she tells me I am her own, and the joy we share as we tarry there,
there none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with love, though the night around me be falling. Love bids me go through the voice of woe. The voice to me is calling, and he walks with me and he talks with me, and he tells me we are his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there none other has ever known, and the joy we share as we tarry there none other has ever known, none other has ever known.
Our closing words this morning are from 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of humans or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.